Hi, Broc Glover here. Welcome to round 8 of the AMA Monster Energy Supercross series here at Daytona International Speedway, or otherwise known as the World Center of Racing. And this is the Dunlop Motorcycle Tires Track Walk. And I have my co-host, Garrett Marchbanks, a 2020 250 Supercross champion here at Daytona.
Yeah, super excited to be here and get ready to do the track walk with Broc.
So let's talk about a little history. I mean, what year were you born?
2001.
Okay, 2001. You are exactly the age of our son. But do you know that Daytona has been the very first Supercross race that ever part of the actual official AMA Supercross series? It was the first Supercross ever in 1974.
Yeah, I just found that out yesterday.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. There's a lot of history here. And actually, they held a Supercross style race here in 1971 as part of what's called the Florida Winter Am Series. And that was one of the very first races ever here, won by a gentleman named Gunnar Lindstrom. Does the name Lindstrom mean anything to you?
Nope.
How about Lars Lindstrom, Team HRC, the Team Honda HRC team manager? Okay,
yep.
That was Lars's dad, Gunnar Lindstrom. So
wow.
He was a longtime motocross rider, came over here, helped introduce the sport here in America, and amazing things. So yes, the first race was called part of the Yamaha AMA's, AMA Yamaha Super Series of Stadium Motocross. And again, it was part of the 1974, the first round of Supercross. And they had 3 rounds that year. We had Daytona, we had Houston, and then Los Angeles Coliseum, which you're going to bring it back this year. Are you going to be ready?
Yeah, I think I'll be ready by then.
Okay, and the fact that you're not racing right there, well, tell us about your injury.
Yeah, I had a little practice incident on actually Halloween getting ready for the series, and yeah, it was just a bummer. I mean, I was super excited to get out there. I was feeling really good this year, but you know, we'll be back on the bike here in the next week or so, and hopefully around Supercross the last 3 rounds, but if not, we'll get ready for outdoors.
Well, speaking of Supercross, let's go check out this track. This is the longest track so far this year, 2,805 feet. That to be exact, they measure it, and I always get the stats from my buddy Tim Kennedy over at the AMA, and he wheels this thing and measures the whole surface as close as he can. But coming off the start here, we're gonna stay over to the left a little bit. It's a little bit muddy. We can kind of work our way out here. If we don't want to maybe pick up some tire tracks we can walk through here. But different dirt on the start here, kind of a red clay that they've imported, and it reminds me a little bit of last week in Arlington, Texas.
Yeah, no, this clay usually gets really hard packed. Last year, and I believe in 2020, it starts in the same position. I remember we ran a paddle tire in 2020. How's it going? Or 2021. Wasn't quite the best choice. A lot of tire spin, especially how hard packed it gets.
Yep.
So. Yeah, I would say the box to the inside is one of the best spots to be in, especially here, because I remember being in the LCQ last year in the 450 class and starting outside, and it was not ideal. It was probably the last place start.
Well, you brought up a paddle tire, the scoop tire. There are some 250 guys over at the Dunlop camp that are going to be trying it. The 450 guys, not another neighbor up there. Speaking of the area, we'll talk about where you're from in Utah, and Chance is up just in Idaho, very, very close. You guys must have raced each other a few times in your life. But we're talking about this start here. The outside gate, measuring by the wheel to the outside of this first corner, and this is a pretty narrow start right here to have 22 guys coming in here at full speed. But the outside is 240 feet. From the dead center to the middle is 220, and the inside's 200. So no matter what, that dead inside gate is, you're going 40 feet shorter than you are on the outside gate. So that's got to be a big advantage.
Yeah, so qualifying is going to probably be a big factor today. You definitely want to have a top 5 spot to get one of those inside gates. So.
Yep, through this first turn, kind of a routine, just a little bit of a wheelie, and then there's the whole shot line there. Hopefully you'll pick up that whole shot bonus money there. But when you jump over this section right here, we did not get to see this yesterday in press day. So this is a rhythm section. You can see up here, you got Aaron Plessinger standing up top with Michael Byrne. A little bit of the KTM camp checking it out. Again, Chance Hymas over there. And this is, again, another dirt shift here. I mean, to change, we have so many different kinds of soil here at Daytona. So let's talk about your win here. What's a guy doing from the area of Utah, just east of Salt Lake City? You come here to Daytona and you have this magical day in 2020. I mean, what brought it on? Tell us about how you felt that day and how it was to be able to win like that.
You know, it's just one of those days. I feel like it just all clicked. Practice felt good, both sessions. The bike was feeling great that day, and yeah, just came out in that heat race, had a good, one of my best starts, had a top 3 start, was right behind, I believe, J-Mart. And yeah, I was like, you know what, I think I can win this heat race. Got around him, lap 1, won the heat race, was like, man, I think this is my night to actually win a main, and pulled my first ever hole shot in the main, led every lap. And you know, it was just an exciting race. You know, I've ridden a lot of sand in my life, especially being from Utah and Club MX. I rode a lot of sand back in my day, but yeah, no.
And speaking of Club MX, you've ridden for Club MX now 3 years. And there's a guy that you were actually racing that night you won too. You had Chase Sexton there. So you battle with Chase, you battle with, there's another one, Shane McGrath. A lot of different guys that are now in the 450 class were in that race with you in 2020. So it must be kind of cool to be able to have those guys, you know, knowing that you beat them that night. And then you talk about Club MX, you've been with them for 3 years, but having toured Club MX this week for the first time ever, I was dumbfounded at the terrain and the variety of tracks, including one of the most incredible sand tracks I've ever seen in my life that Zach Osborne, I heard, trained on extensively. So that had to help growing up riding a lot of Club MX.
Yeah, it definitely did. I mean, I trained there for 2 years as a kid from the age of 12 to 14. So definitely got plenty of my sand days in, and the clay. And so I feel like a lot of the experience from club brought into here. You know, you got clay here, sand, I mean, darker dirt, a lot of dirt that club has. So it's definitely exciting, and you know, this track's awesome. I love it.
Well, talking about your youth, you rode Team Green, you picked up, I mean, you really weren't the mini bike 50cc rider, but when you went to Loretta's, how many titles did you end up with Loretta's? 8?
Yeah, 8.
Eight titles at Loretta Lynn's. I know you were a Team Dunlop elite rider for 5 years, so just to be selected 1 year means you're the top of the, you know, the amateur mini riders, and to be on it for 5 straight years was that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it's definitely a big accomplishment to have, and especially with all the titles from Loretta's. So, you know, it's definitely awesome.
Yeah, I heard a stat that you are you the number 3 all-time moto winner at Loretta Lynn's, the amateur championships?
I'm not sure. I actually haven't looked into it.
Okay.
You know, I've talked to a lot of people. I know a stat that they did give me was my podiums. So I want to say 94, it was 93 to 94% of the time I was going to be on the box.
Wow,
so,
that's a lot. That's a pretty good podium percentage if there ever was one. So we'll work our way through this rhythm section here. Many obstacles in a row. Again, even though the ground looks kind of nice and brown, fairly firm, this is going to get rutted up. It always does here at Daytona.
Yeah, definitely. Last year there was a big, I believe it was some rollers in. It was a quad rhythm. Definitely really technical last year, got really rutted. A lot of holes that get into this stuff, especially when you come from a long straightaway off the finish line into a high-speed rhythm section where you got to check up a little. It'll be interesting to see what the rhythm is here. This is one of the longest rhythms I've seen, actually. So
7, 8. I'm looking. It's the 8th one is a tabletop. And then speaking of Club MX, you got Freddie. I got to watch him practice. I got to watch Freddie practice this weekend up there with J Mart and the boys, and they were all
that's awesome.
Pretty nice. They built a track that resembled as much as they could a Daytona track. So they actually built the track trying to, you know, it was basic for the riders to practice on similar conditions that they're going to face here at Daytona.
Oh, that's awesome.
So again, all the rhythm sections in a row up onto a table. This is the obstacle, depending on how they'll end up hitting this one here. But again, Daytona is always a fast and long track, and we can probably hear in the microphones it's quite windy today. They were saying up to 30 miles, 25 to 30 mile an hour winds.
Wow.
What about riding in the wind?
Definitely not fun. You know, definitely want to kind of whip into the wind, not, you know, go straight. So it's definitely going to be challenging if it stays this windy throughout the day. The track's going to get dry. It's going to be pretty hard packed, so hopefully they keep the water on the track. But yeah, by the main event, hopefully the wind calms down. It usually does, so we'll see.
Yep, and talking, Dylan Ferrandis is back in action. We're glad to see him back. Did you see the fall he had yesterday? He had a little bit of a more than a little bit of a get off. He had a get off in Preste, I heard.
Yeah, I seen the video of it. Looked pretty brutal. Yeah, so definitely not a good way.
No, that's unfortunately a bit of an awakening that you don't want. But again, look at here's typical Daytona right here. I'm picking up a seashell off the track. So there's always the variety of dirt. You know where they're getting it from, and some of it they dig out and lift up, and some of it they don't. But way back in the old days, let's talk about some crazy old days of riding at Daytona. Yeah, the track was long. They had 40 riders on a gate. In I believe 73, it was part of the AMA National Championship, the motocross series, which the 74 was the first year that they started Supercross. That's why this is the 50th anniversary of the Monster Energy AMA Supercross series, because it didn't officially start until 74. But
Okay.
think about this track as being part of the national championship races on the outdoor motocross with three moto format, like a triple crown, plus you had 40 riders on the track.
Wow, I can only imagine how brutal this track got from back then.
Gosh.
I mean, it gets crazy now, especially in the 450 class. It gets brutal, but
Yeah.
doing 6 motos back then with 40 guys in the gates and double them out. I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to ride that track.
Yes, it was. In 1973, yeah, it was part of, like I mentioned earlier, the Yamaha sponsored series, and a Dutchman, Pierre Karsmakers, won that. And it was kind of a supercross hybrid motocross track, and it was something else. In the prior year, though, I think Pierre won the 250 race, and the following year, 74, the first year, he won the 250 race, and that was his only Supercross race he ever won in his career. He won 30 AMA Pro races that were part of the Inter-Am, Trans AMAs, or AMA Nationals. He won 30 times, but only one Supercross, and it was Daytona. And ironically enough, they had a 500cc class for the first 2 years of the Supercross, and Roger DeCoster won the 500s that day, and I'm sure it was his only Supercross win ever. I saw him race in the LA Coliseum a couple of times way back in the early 70s, but when I was a very young kid, and it was to see the European riders win both of the classes that day was interesting for the riders. And a name that might be familiar with, Gary Bailey, was third on one of those Supercross races on a Bull Taco, but you have to know Gary Bailey's name from his stepson David Bailey, right? Yep, you got it. So we have a lot of history. The Lindstroms, the Baileys, a lot of different father-son era that have rode here at Daytona.
Yeah, there's been a lot of it I've seen, so it's pretty crazy to see all that.
So again, coming out of this section, you look back, it's another back-to-back rhythm, just a down and back as we head into the west corner of the stadium. Big bowl corner there on the Rocky Mountain, ATV corner there, and then boom, pop. What probably the top guys, you think they're going to get up on that little table there?
Yeah, so I've been thinking last year we had a similar rhythm like that, and this turn usually gets pretty chewed out, especially if a lot of guys are trying to 3-on. A lot of them aren't going to want to use the whole berm. Seems like the berm has kind of a notch at the end, so a lot of them are going to start cutting down really tight.
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of the better guys have to get it done early in their qualifying until it starts getting brutal. So I feel like the rhythm might be a 3-on off quad for the 450 guys, personally, and then for the lights guys, I feel like it's going to be three on off again.
Oh, you're talking about turn down early, or you could have just said Cooper Webb's going to be turning down early.
Yeah,
because
Cooper.
The inside of the inside line guy. And you know what? Speaking of Coop, how about I saw a stat the other day. It was pretty amazing that Cooper's only led 10 laps this year, yet he sits a few points out of the lead and has already got a couple of wins. So that's impressive. I mean, impressive, but also I'm sure he'd like to clean up his starts a little more so he didn't have to work so hard.
Yeah, starts are definitely key, and heck, it tells you how consistency is key. Just being in those top 3, top 4 positions every weekend can put you right there in the #1 spot with the red plate.
Yeah, he's at the end of the race. It's the last person any of these riders want to see behind him. So coming over this tunnel, this is kind of synonymous with the Daytona. As long as I'm coming here, if we can see this Keaton right here, this little culvert pathway to the inside, it used to be utilized a lot more often. There were times that's how we staged. We actually rode our bikes through that tunnel and over the years, but it's always just synonymous. There's always that tunnel jump or culvert jump, and it's a lot of fun. It's just part of what Daytona is all about. And then here on the left, this is getting to be part of what Daytona is all about.
Oh, yeah.
A big sandy beach section here, huh?
Yeah, the sand's always been brutal here, especially last year. I remember just getting sandblasted in the main event behind Bogle and them. But
there's the New York State connection right there. We got our amateur manager Rob Fox and his dad Craig, and then we got Justin Cooper. The most unlikely place to grow up to be a top motocross rider outside of New York City, huh?
yeah, you wouldn't think that, huh?
Yep. So So speaking of growing up, Utah, were you a snow skier? What was your recreation other than motorcycles?
Pretty much just dirt bikes, sadly. We lived 20 minutes from Park City. My dad, you know, we did snowmobiling a little bit here and there on the winters, but yeah, actually never got to ever ski or snowboard.
Really?
Never.
That's good probably because you didn't get injured, but sad that you didn't. I remember one time, honestly, like slipping and just putting my hand down. I never even fell, and I broke my thumb like 2 weeks before Anaheim won. And that was a bad lesson, a hard lesson, and realized snow skiing, if I'm going to do snow skiing, I need to do it a lot earlier in the year, so I'm not risking my career. Coming off of this section here, you can see some of the marks here. Those marks, I think, were from our Grand Marshal. You know who that is? Who's our Grand Marshal?
I don't know.
Justin Brayton. Just a few weeks or a week or so ago, I found out 2018 winner Justin Brayton was, honored by being the Grand Marshal at this race, which is a great honor for him. Justin's solo win here. Ironically enough, Daytona has produced some one-time winners of all Supercross. Ricky Ryan comes to mind, I think in 1987, a very unlikely winner to win the Daytona Supercross. Also, Rex Staten, a teammate of mine at the time in 1980, although he won a few nationals in his career, outdoor 500cc nationals, he never won a Supercross other than Daytona. So 1980, and then also Justin Brayton broke up Eli Tomac's run. And Tomac, I think, went down in the first corner. I know he came from a long ways back that year in 18. He made it all the way back to second place, got within 3 seconds of Justin. And looking back at the lap times, I remember seeing Justin kind of saw him coming and it's like, look, I got to be able to hang on for 2 more laps. And he dug deep, and he did, and he kind of matched some lap times pretty close to what Eli was doing. Was able to hang on for his one solo win, and what a race to win. Yeah, this is this amazing deal. So good on Justin Brayton. But those tracks back there in that berm, they had a little GoPro video on Justin's chest, and I saw him doing laps out here, and I talked to him last night, and he's like, man, this track's tough, and if you're not ready for it, it's really hard. Yeah, this track is one of those ones where if you're not feeling it or you get the track down, it's definitely one of the tougher tracks on the circuit. I was definitely there last year, didn't have a lot of time on the 450, and coming right into it, it was definitely brutal. Well, this deep sand, and speaking of sand, I've got someone walking up on your shoulder there as one of the best sand riders I honestly, he's amazing. I mean, Max Anstey, what you've done in GPs at Lommel and beating the world's best riders, and also I got to see you win the Motocross of the Nations overall at Matterley Basin. You've had some incredible rides, and what do you think when you've got to be salivating when you get to a sand track like this?
Oh yeah, it's nice because the Americans love to stick it in second gear and wherever, so it's quite nice to have a little rest when I get to the sand section and feel pretty good. But no, it's so different in Supercross. These sections are so soft and so deep, and our bikes are set up to do the big jumps, and to go around the sand is always a tough section. Everyone finds it hard, and it's definitely a section where you've got to be on your toes. I'm looking forward to it though.
Well, very good, Max. Good luck tonight, and you've had a really great run so far in the 250 class, and it's sitting right up there on the points, and we'll see what happens here, man.
I'm looking forward to running the scoop maybe. I mean, I know a lot of the 250 guys last year around the scoop tires, so that helps a lot in the sand. So that's
absolutely
primarily made for the sand, so hopefully it'll be a benefit through this section.
Very good, thanks. Well, I hope you guys can hear Max there. You know, obviously we have lapel mics, so it's a little bit harder to hear with the wind, but yeah, he was mentioning the fact that he's going to most likely be running the scoop tire, because in the 250, coming out of sections like that, without having the scoop tire, the 250s just don't have the same power the 450s have to get up on top of the sand as quickly. So having that scoop tire gets you a little bit. So running the MX-14, getting a little drive out of here. And then right here, back across the starting line area. So we just did the west section of the track, and here we come into what we did get to see him ride yesterday in the press lane. So what did you see here yesterday, Garrett?
It's same rhythm as last year. Seems like a lot of guys are probably going to be on the left side more, going 3, I believe 2 up on top and going to the inside or possibly outside. I think another rhythm here would be probably to go 2, 3 up on top and go outside. It's definitely going to have an option lane. We had that last year as well. So this section's pretty good just because there's a lot of option, and this is usually a lot of good spot, especially from last year to pass guys.
Yeah, if right here this low, you think you do a little wheelie and then just hit this next and do 2-2, or I mean, like you mentioned, do 2 and then try to do the triple here, huh?
Yeah, I think the very right side's a pretty low face, so I could definitely see some guys coming through, wheeling over, and trying to go 3 and tuck it to the inside.
Perfect.
So I think this might be even a good spot to, you know, have some good defense and block the insides here.
Nice, yeah, because the turn right afterwards is kind of a unique off-camber right-hand corner, very, very tight. Last year, I remember it had a very deep inside rut, and then it had a nice big deep railing, and you'll be able to see when we kind of creep out of this next jump and you peer over the top of this jump how deep this little hole is right here. So we just finished the west side of the track. The west side of the track you know, is roughly 1,200 feet long. The east side where we're headed now is 1,600. So
wow.
A little bit longer, 400 feet longer on this side. But as you can see right here, this is a deep hole. Do you remember riding here last year and feeling what this felt like?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't this deep. You definitely tell they dug it out a lot more. I want to say it was about up to here. It was more of a slight off camber last year,
right?
Because a lot of guys were actually launching off, and it looks like this year you're gonna have to check up a lot off this so you're not catching too much air. But it looks like they dug it out more so the inside isn't so dominant. Because last year a lot of guys were just hugging the inside out. I don't know if you remember that at the end of the main.
I do, absolutely. Staying real tight right there. Look how, I mean, it's really tight. You think about a 450, I mean, you've only got a 5 or 6 foot difference between the corners, so you're doing a really tight radius there. So speaking of 250s and 450s, you win here on a 250, and I mean, you know, kiddingly, you were coined the man child because you're always a big kid. And so when you got off the mini bikes, you're always a little larger than the guys. But to me, your body has always fit a 450 very well. And it's kind of like, to me, a Chase Sexton who comes off of a 250, and he was very, very good 250 rider, but you do his style that he was going to easily adapt to the 450. So how much do you practice and ride on a 450 versus a 250? And do you still have your eyes on getting into that 450 class sooner than later?
So obviously last year I rode a 450 the whole outdoor season, so I definitely rode a lot more than often. But our plan this year was to do 250 Supercross outdoors. But usually we like to ride the 450 once a week on a Friday, you know, on our easier days. We usually put about 45 minutes on it, but I like both bikes a lot. The 450 was definitely brutal on me last year. I was definitely hurt most of my season, so I definitely didn't make it fun with all that power underneath me.
Yes.
But no, I love both bikes though.
Yeah, this is a tough sport. Riding injured is not easy, especially as you mentioned on a 450. So coming off that little section is pretty basic. Guys were popping all 3, some were doing 2. Turning here, you can see they put a lot of water down on it with this wind. The track will be drying out much more quickly than normal. But and now back at the old over-under, we're starting to see a lot more of these this whole last year or two in the Supercross series. And this is the one track of the 17 rounds that's not built by the Dirtworks crew.
Really?
So yeah, so this is the one race, and this is the same gentleman. There are a couple of guys building it, and Mark Barnett used to have something to do with it. I don't think he no longer does, but Ricky Carmichael designed. And that being said, I think the riders, part of it's the dirt, but also, you know, a different track builder does have a little different feel to it. Did you ever notice when you rode Daytona that it had a little different feel?
You can definitely tell some of the rhythms weren't identical to the Supercrosses. You know, like the spacings, the depth of some of the jumps. Definitely could tell the difference on some things. Yeah, you just tell the consistency that Dirtworks has with Supercross compared to these guys. But I mean, they still do an amazing job with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's make it unique and definitely a fun race.
Nothing, Davey. How are you, man? That's Davey Millsaps, another legendary rider from Florida. Yeah, the legend. We got legends everywhere. Ezra, how the heck are you, brother?
Good, man. How are you?
I know you. Not often you get to see Ezra Lusk out here, but I want to talk a little bit to Ezra. And so what are you doing? And we're going to get really close because I have a lapel mic and I want people to be able to hear what you have to say.
Well, that's good too, because I can't hardly hear anymore anyway, so.
Yeah.
Very.
So many great races I've got to witness you ride. When you raced during that the McGrath era, so you raced him a lot, and there was just a lot of other riders that you rode. So what are some of your fondest memories, and particularly here at Daytona?
How's it going? Well, you know, some of my fondest memories were racing with Jeremy. Even though, you know, we got together a good bit throughout our career, it was still something I was super proud of. Enjoyed every moment with someone that really created the sport in that era, you know. So, but then I got to race Ricky. I got to race Chad. I really got to race the greatest guys, you know, during that time. So. Something I'm proud of, something that's super fun, but we just kind of came down. My kids have never ever really got to do a track walk. Never really been on the track that the pros rode, got to see the peaks, got to see the gaps, you know, and now the sand that they've involved in the tracks this year is awesome. So I think that's great. It brings that new element to it, you know, that just kind of mixes it up. So we figured we'd come down to Daytona and do the whole Daytona weekend.
Awesome. Well, if you ever want to get on a track walk, you look me up because we can help you out. I hope you'll be at Atlanta, some other races. What other races you'll be at?
Yeah, we're going to do Atlanta and we're going to do Nashville, and then that'll probably be it. So.
All right. Well, get in touch with me. Get another track walk. I'm sure Davey can help you out.
You have a good one.
The great Ezra Lusk. I mean, factory. My memories of him were racing. Believe it, like at Sun Devil Stadium back in Phoenix and riding the Honda with the aluminum frame bikes and the different things. And then also he obviously rode for Kawasaki and Suzuki in his early days. And so Ezra was a strong competitor, and you know, running against a guy like Jeremy McGrath in the Supercross series was not an easy competitor. And you mentioned racing even at the end towards Chad Reed. And speaking of Chad Reed, we talked about Pierre Karsmacher's, you know, winning that. He was the winningest foreign rider, a record that stood for some 30 plus years until Chad Reed finally surpassed you know, Pierre's winning record for the foreign-born rider. So pretty amazing rider. He definitely helped develop our sport in this country. So good on Pierre Karsmacher's. I got to see him in Italy here back in November, and he looks like he's about 50, and he's old. He's older. He definitely has a good genes in his body. So this, on top of the basic Supercross triple, you know, they're always 68 to 72, and I think this one measures right around 70. So
okay.
I say it every week. It looks so darn far, and you guys just make it so easy. But the one thing about this one, let's talk about the wind. I mean, we're up here and we're feeling this tailwind, and luckily it is a tailwind. So I think riders are they're gonna have to judge the over jumping here.
Yeah, I would definitely, you can tell the wind's blowing a little bit to the side too. So if I were riding today, I'd definitely hit it in the middle to the more of the right side.
Okay.
So if it does catch you, you're not going off into the tough blocks on the left.
Yeah, there's nothing good about, you mentioned blowing. We'll see back here behind those Dunlop tough blocks, you'll see the little palm trees they've put in here from some aesthetics, make it look a little bit more like Florida, but you can see the wind is kind of calm now, and then they'll gust up a lot, and you can see in the far distance there's a Legends and Heroes display, and that their Easy Up is moving all over the place. So you have to, I'm sure, have it tied down and anchored down. So the winds can really gust here, and they're inconsistent, so it makes racing real hard. So into this corner, kind of shallow pitch to this corner right here.
Yeah. A lot of us, I remember the turn was identical from last year right here. A lot of us were hitting the turn right, and here more lower in the base, just because everything gets so pushed up over.
Yeah.
So a lot of guys I remember in practice and press last year were sliding out right here, going so high up in the berm.
Yeah, once you get up high, it gets real soft and then it breaks away. But of course, what you're really focused, you said turning there, turning down, and getting lined up to this next obstacle that is, we see it more traditional Supercross tracks, but right here are the whoops. And these can be big separators. We've seen some treacherous whoops this season. We saw some killer ones in Oakland, and we had 2 sets there. And even last week in Arlington, we had some very difficult whoops there. They just got cupped out. And did you watch Arlington a little bit on TV?
Yeah, they seemed a little smaller after press. It seems like they toned them down a little bit, but they definitely got really cupped out and shoot out.
Yep, got it. Nick, my compatriot from Pirelli here. Yes. So, paddle tires. I mean, yes, there's definitely Dunlop, some riders in the 250s that are going to be riding the scoop tires. How about over at the Pirelli camp?
Same.
Same? Yeah, gotcha.
Yep. You know, the track's we're starting off pretty soft.
Okay.
So, for the early morning sessions, let's get it out there. Let's see what it does, and As the day moves on, we'll adjust.
Very good. All right. Well, good luck with your guys, but not too good of luck, right? We guess we got to. Yeah. All right.
We'll see how it works.
Yeah, we're equal opportunity on this Dunlop Motorcycle Tires track walk here. So Garrett, you're a big, tall guy. I mean, you're getting these whoops. I ask each one of my co-hosts every week, like, when you enter the whoops, what's your technique? What are you thinking? Where are your eyes, and what do you try to focus on as you're trying to get through the whoops?
You know, for me, I like to stay more centered on the bike, not getting too far back, especially on a set like this where they start off really small and get deeper and bigger as they go. I prefer on this set, I mean, depends. I mean, if you're on the 250 fourth gear, 450 third gear.
Okay.
So,
well, we can see right here that a few riders have actually made some laps here. I don't know if this was Justin Brayton. I didn't see him go through the whoops here, but this is the first place the tire hits. I mean, that's for sure 50 or more % higher up the face of the whoop.
Yeah.
You're never letting it drop in there, so whoever was doing those definitely rides the whoops better than I could. So I just know that they're hitting the tips.
Yeah.
I'd be going the exit line over there. I'm past my whoop blitzing days, that's for darn sure. So.
Yeah, they're definitely scary at times, but once you get out there, they're pretty fun. That's probably one of my favorite parts of the racing track, or the whoops.
Yeah, I'm sure it has to be. You're always a taller, bigger rider, and you take that height and your physique to your advantage.
Oh yeah.
So here, this is the kitty wampus section of
what do you call
rhythms. It's a staggered rhythm section, right? You got high on the left, low on. High here on the left, and the next one's low, and they're staggered all the way through. If Keaton, you can get down pretty low here with the camera, and you can kind of see what everybody's seeing here, and it's you see how high on the right on every other one. Options, maybe you go right down the middle, keep it just in the middle, or when you're hitting the 450 guys tend to hit the lower and try to clear the higher, and the 250 guys might use the higher to try to do a little farther launch.
Yeah,
huh?
I'm trying to think. Last year, I want to say we were hitting the middle, so we weren't catching too much air, but our plan was to go 3 in and then 2 to the inside.
Right, okay, so 3, and then, so we're on number 2. You want to clear this?
Yep.
That would be good, because if you hit the higher part on the left or the middle, get enough lift, no problem, to land right in the middle to the right.
Yeah.
And then pop this, and then you said to the inside.
Yeah.
So this is a split lane we're coming up here.
Which last year, it was pretty close.
So I actually have my data on this. So this is my cheat sheet on it. The split lane is 125 feet on the inside and 130 on the outside.
Okay.
So if you enter on the outside, you do go 5 feet further than you do on the inside. But then again, just depends on the speed, how deep the rut is. When you slow down so much at the entry, that's why they try to do that, because you slow down so much at the entry, you got to gain back that speed. So over the years, they've measured these. They figure out they need to be a slightly different length, depending if you go inside first or outside. But then if you're on the inside here, you got to go straight up. You got to go straight up this run right here. And it blasted by the wind right when you come up here. And this is going to be your first time that you're really going to notice this wind.
Yeah, it's definitely windy up here.
Yep, so we'll go down so the microphones aren't buzzing, but how about this section here? This is a wall.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the steeper walls. Look, you can see where the tractor mark is, barely gets up there.
You get down low like this, and all you're seeing, you're just seeing the bleachers, you're just seeing, it's not even worth us trying to climb up that thing, and we could make it probably, but we'll go around nearly vertical. So, got the Tomac camp over here, talking and laughing and carrying on, but here we go. Through here, wall jump. I'm sure some people will be landing, but if you jump too far, you're not going to have the lift off. You're not going to have the drive for the finish line jump. So that's going to be a challenge in itself. So looking at lap times, Daytona, maybe 110, 112. I mean, I've seen them qualify down in the 108s and stuff.
Right.
And it's hard to say with this one. I'm thinking it's by the time the races come around, we're probably going to be looking at somewhere 110-ish.
Yeah, I would say around 110 to 115.
Yeah.
Especially how technical this track is. I mean, I feel like it's going to break down a lot, especially the wall, certain sections, the whoops. They definitely broke down last year with that red clay dirt. So where a lot of guys were actually jumping by then, the 450 main last year. So, especially this rhythm being longer, I could definitely see it 115.
Yeah, I could see it 120 or 30 or 40 by some people. But so as we come off the finish line jump here, and we've got Jake is starting the services over there, and we're entering the track right here. Again, you can see where we're coming back on the front straight, right here on the tri-oval. And one of the coolest things that they've done in Daytona in the last, I don't know, 10 years or so, is starting to allow the fans to come stand on the banking at this race. And that just brings them right down, because you did, when you raced Daytona in the old days, for me, I always felt so isolated from the fans. They were so far away to me. And now having those people right here, I know the riders love it. And how about yourself? Did you love it?
Oh yeah, especially the day I won. I mean, everyone was just standing right here cheering, getting to do the burnout right down there. I mean, it was definitely an awesome feeling. Everyone right there giving me high fives. So
nice. Well, I want to thank you for joining us at Track Walk, Garrett, and the sooner you can get back on the track, the more. Maybe you can get another one of these Supercross wins, because I know you'd love to be out here this time, but we can't make it. But Dunlop Motorcycle Tires Track Walk here at Daytona International Speedway for the 50th anniversary of AMA Supercross. So this is it. So tune in next week.